Breaking news Wednesday here on the Pick Six podcast. Hello, everybody. I'm Sam McEwen along with Evan Bland and Tom Chattel. We're coming to you on Zoom. We're hammering away at a bunch of breaking stories. Evan had one with Myles Farmer, our colleague down at the Journal-Star. Will be having one on Aaron Eulis, who probably is not going to be playing a game with Nebraska basketball. That would be my hunch. After he was found, he's been charged with making more than 1,000 bets on college sports. I don't anticipate him necessarily being with the Huskers for a long period of time. We'll find out. But we're going to cover those things. Obviously, Nebraska football camp has begun, and that's a big deal. Like, we can't just ignore that. Good vibes coming out of camp on Monday and Tuesday from Matt Rule and crew. So we'll cover that as well. If we get to volleyball, great. I watched the John Cook interviews yesterday, so I have some thoughts maybe if we can get to that. But I think we're going to start with where we are. I want to remind everybody, hey, today's August 2nd. Subscribe to the Omaha World-Herald. This will take you through the second signing day if you subscribe now. 6 months, $1, whole football season, all the Tom Chattel, all the Evan, all of the me, all of the football. There'll be some basketball in there too. Who knows what they're going to do, and all of the volleyball. So the entire volleyball season, you can get that if you subscribe to the Omaha World-Herald today. That's a pretty cool deal, football and volleyball for $1, 6 months. Okay, let's get into it. Let's start with Myles Farmer. So Myles Farmer has entered the transfer portal, Evan. He's leaving the program. I don't anticipate him returning. If he had wanted to stay, he would have. He was suspended right before camp, maybe a few days before camp, for not adhering or upholding the standards that Matt Rule has set forth for his players. You just wrote the quick story about it. What do you think the impact is here of his departure, and also what it says about Rule setting the culture?
Right. Obviously it's not ideal when you lose a guy who's been your starter for the last year and a half. He's been one of Nebraska's best players on defense. There's no doubt about it. But, I do think if there's a spot on the team where you were to say, okay, remove this guy early in fall camp, I think the secondary would be the spot for that. I mean, you look at what they've got back with Malcolm Hartzog, who was a starter, Marquise Buford, who's still recovering from a knee injury, but he's a starter who's on the way back. Quentin Newsome, of course, who's been sort of the Iron Man for Nebraska the last couple of years. And then they have a number of other just sort of depth pieces that we'll see how it plays out. Tommy Hill's back on that side of the ball, Omar Brown, Corey Collier. Like, you can go down the list and say there are players, Isaac Gifford, of course, who could conceivably fill that spot. So I don't think it's as huge of a deal as it would be at some other positions. To your point about the culture, yeah, I think it's another sort of message that's sent. I mean, first of all, they had no problem suspending Myles Farmer. They had no problem talking about suspending Myles Farmer this week, did Rule. So I think
Not a fan day.
Yeah, it wasn't a fan day. And I think it follows up with what we, saw with Bob Wager too, who has the DUI incident and promptly resigns. Like, there's, I think, a pretty clear message that, you live up to the standard or you're not going to be here. And as Matt Rule said on Monday, they wanted Myles Farmer to be here. They wanted him to clean up some of those maybe minor violations or lapses in judgment, whatever it might be. Ultimately, he decided to go the other way. They're cool with that. They move on. But yeah, I think it's sort of both. It's going to be a little bit of a hit for a defense that, of course, could have kept them around, but at the same time, I do think it's a testament to the culture that this program has set in the offseason.
Tom, you've covered a lot of coaches in your time. I'm curious where Rule sits and on the disciplinarian scale for you, and whether you think this is unique to your experience or something that you've seen before, and how do you think it's affecting the program already?
Yeah, I don't. It's not unique. I mean, a lot of coaches have had this kind of discipline. This is what you need. This is what Nebraska has not had the last several years on the field. It's unique around Nebraska lately. I mean, you can make the argument that Myles Farmer would still be on the team with the old staff. I mean, who knows what was going on? Under the old staff. So. And I don't know what kind of things he wasn't doing or the extent of it or whatever. So I can't talk about that. But look, this is the kind of stuff that happens when you have a coaching change, and for it to happen with a starter before the fall camp, I think maybe they just saw that this was going to be an issue going forward, and they just took care of it now. They didn't want it to have it happen all fall. So it's a sign that you've got to shape up or you're not going to play. And the fact that it was a starter, might be beneficial to the Rule way. Trying to send a message to the team. It could be anybody. So nobody's above it. So I look at it as this stuff that happens the first year. Like Evan said, it's not ideal. But it's to me overall, it's about the 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 bigger picture of this guy. You gotta have discipline, or you're not going to win this league. So you move on.
Yeah, Evan, you mentioned Wager, and from my perspective, based on what he was cited for, I think he would have resigned under almost any coaching staff. Because he was cited for a DUI of 1.5, and just so we're clear, if it's over 0.08, sometimes those don't always whatever because of the margin of error, but there's no margin of error that comes into play when it's 0.15. Beyond that, open container, careless drive. This is a person that was that wasn't stopped at a DUI stop that you get off the interstate. This is somebody who was picked up for erratic driving and drinking while driving. That's what an open container in a vehicle typically indicates. So
sure. My only point was that Keith Williams was someone who Nebraska did keep back in the day. So there is an example of going the other way. That was all I was
for sure.
saying.
No, and yeah, that was always a controversial decision, for sure. And so I think Nebraska actually upgraded the position coach. I don't know if they upgraded the recruiting, but they upgraded the position coach by getting Josh Martin there.